Good evening. We're holding now Daf Mem Amud Aleph. We have now another 9 blot to go. Just a few important announcements before we start. Number one is, as we announced today, Wednesday night, a week from this Wednesday, we will be hosting the Grand Siyum in the Jewish Children's Museum with a grand dinner and music and speeches. It should be a nice event, so please register before. Even though the thing in Crown Heights is not the RSVP, it's just we want to make sure that we have enough place for everybody. So just be so kind and fill out the WhatsApp form. As promised as well, just quickly the raffle winners. We have third place, Yossi Leverton. You won $180 cash. Akiva, doesn't say your last name over here, you won $360. And first place is Benny Bartfield, $500 cash. Okay, please get in touch with me to claim your prizes. Okay, so the last thing we ended off is we said that they would say different brachas. The Yidden, or the custom is that we say, the last thing we said by Ne'ilah, what does the people say? So we said the brachas from Tehillim, Hine Kein Yivarech Gover Yirei, Yivarech Hashem Etzion, Urei Tev. So Shachris we say one thing, Musaf we say another thing, Ne'ilah another thing. So now the Gemara asks, Heichen Amrun, where does the Kehillah say these brachas by Birchas Kainim? Where exactly during the Birchas Kainim do the Yidden say, do us Yidden say this bracha? So Rabbi Yosef Amar, Rabbi Yosef says, Bein kol bracha u bracha, between every single bracha. In other words, after every pasuk, you say, let's say, Yivaracha Hashem v'yishmerecha. So after every pasuk, from the Birchas Kainim, that's when they would say these psukim very quickly. But Rav Sheshes Amar, Rav Sheshes says, B'haskaras Hashem, when they mention the Eibishter's name. The Eibishter's name is mentioned in Birchas Kainim 3 times. So every time they mention Hashem's name, that's when they should say these brachas. Pligi bar Rav Mari v'Rav Zvid. It's a machlekes between Rav Mari and Rav Zvid. Chad Amar, one person says, Psuke lekovel psuka, that they would say a pasuk corresponding to a pasuk. Chad Amar, and another person says, Al kol psuka amar lu lekula, that they would say for every single pasuk that the kohen would recite, the congregation would recite all 3 psukim. So in other words, one holds that the Kehillah recited one pasuk at a time, corresponding to the pasuk that the kohen recited, and the other opinion holds that every single pasuk that the kohen recited, the congregation said all 3 psukim. Amar Rav Chia bar Abba says, Kol ha'imrin begvulin, anybody who says psukim outside of the Beis HaMikdash, eina ela toya, make a mistake. In other words, according to Rav Chia, he holds that the Chachamim instituted, that we should say Birchas Kohanim, that we should say psukim by Birchas Kohanim, is only in the Beis HaMikdash, because in the Beis HaMikdash, that's when they had the Shem HaMeferish. But in regards to everywhere else, he holds that you do not say any psukim by Birchas Kohanim. Amar Rav Chia bar Abba, Amar Rav Chanina bar Papa. Rav Chanina bar Papa says, Teida, what's a proof? He says that you should know that in the Beis HaMikdash also, people should not recite these psukim. Why? What's his raya? Because he says a simple logic. Do you have a servant who is being blessed and does not listen to the bracha, but rather speaks at the same time? The kohanim now are giving up a bracha to this person, and while he's being blessed, he starts speaking at the same time. Even doesn't matter what he says. It's totally disrespectful. So it doesn't make sense that while the kohanim who are benching the Yidden, which is obviously the Eibishter benching the Yidden through the kohanim, it doesn't make sense that the Yidden should be speaking at the same time. Amar Rab Acha bar Chanina. Rab Acha bar Chanina says, Teida, you should know, the begvula nami bimboy le meim rinu. You should know that outside of the Beis HaMikdash, you should say this psukim as well. What's he saying? Why? Because he says, Klum yesh eved shemavarchen oisev ein mas b'panim. Is there a servant who is being blessed and his face does not brighten? So a person should recite the psukim to give thanks to Hashem. Amar Rav Abo says that Mereish havamin lahu. He said, at first I would recite these psukim. Since I saw that Abba from Aku did not say the psukim, I also did not recite these psukim. Now, what's interesting, based on this Gemara, it comes out that you're not really supposed to say any psukim by Birchas Kohanim, right? Kol ha'imrim b'gvul einei eloteya. But we know that we say different psukim by the last three words of the Kohanim when they say the words of, the last three words of Birchas Kohanim. We say the whole Rebbeinu Shalom, which is speaking about the Chaleim, and that's what the Gemara in Bracha says. This is Taisus' question. Taisus says, Haiman de Chazi Chalma. Over there, somebody who sees a dream, so he should say this by Birchas Kohanim. And this is what the Chacham instituted. Yet, our Gemara says that Einei Eloteya. So Taisus answers and says that, a dream is very, very strict and very... So therefore the Chacham are matter. Other Rishonim want to say that you don't really say, when he said, Kol ha'imrim b'gvul einei eloteya, he meant to say, if it's at the time that the Kohanim are speaking, so for you to speak at the same time, for you to say the words at the same time is disrespectful. But what he meant to say is that while the Kohanim are humming, that's when you should say it. So based on that, when the Kohen Taka says the next word, you should be careful not to say anything. Okay. Rabbi says, in Vinosa ano. In Visana ano. In the beginning, he said, Rabbi says, in the beginning, I said that I'm very humble. Why? Kiva the Chazina lei, the Rabbi Abu, the Min Aku, the Omar Iu Chad Taima. So he says in the beginning, he says that I said that I was very humble. Since I saw that Rabbi Abu Min Aku, Kiva the Chazina lei, the Rabbi Abu, the Min Aku, the Omar Iu Chad Taima of Omar, Amir Chad Taima of Eloi Kapit. And he said, since I saw that Rabbi Abu of Aku himself said a reason, and his interpreter stated another reason. In other words, Rabbi Vo said a pshat, and his metorgaman, who was supposed to translate what he was saying in Shir, did not translate it on purpose properly. He didn't get offended. Amina lav in visona ano. He said, I myself am not humble. That's what Rabbi Vo said. Rabbi said that he saw that he himself is a humble man, and he realized that the bittul that Abu the Min Aku had, that he didn't get offended at his translator. He said that I'm really not humble. Now, so the Gemara said, Umay in v'senusei de Rabbi Vo. What was the humility? It says about Rabbi Vo. Rabbi Vo says in the beginning, I saw that I'm humble. So the question is, what was the humility of Rabbi Vo? So he says, the Gemara says, the Omar lei, the Besu, the Amir de Rabbi Vo, the Besu de Rabbi Vo. The Gemara says that Rabbi Vo's metorgaman, interpreter's wife, said to Rabbi Vo's wife, Hadi dan loy tzorech leili didach. So she said she wanted to shtech Rabbi Vo's wife. So she said, in other words, this one of yours, my husband, has no need for your husband, Rabbi Vo. And he was saying basically that him as a metorgaman, he could really teach everything on his own. And the fact that he bends over to listen to Rabbi Vo, the fact that he bends down and then stands up, the only reason why he's doing it is because he just wants to show respect to Rabbi Vo. So what happened? So his wife came, Rabbi Vo's wife came and said, do you hear what the wife of your interpreter is saying? He's saying that he really doesn't need you, that he knows as much as Torah as you, and the only reason why he's bending over and making like he's interpreting or doing his job is because he has respect for you. So Omar lo. So listen to this word. This is such a powerful lesson. Umay nafkeli minai. He said to her, and what difference does it make to you? Mini umine iskalasila. Through me and through him, Hashem will be exalted. In other words, it doesn't matter which one of us is teaching, as long as Torah is being spread. So that's one humility. Furthermore, another example of his humility. The Chachamim were counted and reached the decision to appoint Rabbi Avo as the Rosh HaYeshiva. Since he saw that Rabbi Abba of Aku had many chayvis, and as Rashi says, Mefarshim say that the minhag is that anybody became a Rosh HaYeshiva, he was very, very wealthy. So basically his chayvis were wiped out, and he became a gvir himself. So Rabbi Avo, they wanted him to become the Rosh HaYeshiva, but once he saw that Rabbi Abba de Minaku, that he was a Baal Chayvis, Amar Lahu, he said to them, Ikar Abba, there is a great man amongst us, Rabbi Abba, and you should make him the Rosh HaYeshiva. That's the second story of his humility. Another story of his humility, Rabbi Avo and Rabbi Chia bar Abba Iklo L'Hai Asra. Rabbi Avo and Rabbi Chia bar Abba happened to come to a certain place. Rabbi Avo Dorish Ba'Agadata. So Rabbi Avo started teaching matters of Agadata, and Rabbi Chia bar Abba Dorish B'Shmaitza. And Rabbi Chia bar Abba was darshaning about halacha. Shafku kula amal Rabbi Chia bar Abba. So everybody left Rabbi Chia bar Abba's shir, but also legabeid Rabbi Avo, and they went to go listen to Rabbi Avo's shir, because Rabbi Avo's shir on Agadata was a lot more entertaining. It wasn't as heavy as learning halacha. So what happened? Chalish daiti. So he got very offended. Rabbi Chia bar Abba got very offended that everybody left his shir. So Amar Lei said, Rabbi Avo told Rabbi Chia, Em shalacha mashal, lama davar dema. I'm going to give you a mashal to what this can be compared to. The shnei bnei adam, you have two people. Echel meicher avanim teves, ve'echel meicher mine sidnis. You have two people. One sells precious stones, and the other person sells like sidnis, like a cheap type of material. So Ami Kaifton, who do you think is going to get the majority of the sales? It's going to be upon the person who sells like these small items. In other words, he says, similarly, I'm selling like these small items that are cheap. Yeah, everybody's going to learn Agadata. It's very simple, it's not heavy, it's entertaining. But by you're teaching halacha, which is like Avanim Teves. Yes, it's Avanim Teves, but not everyone is going to jump on it because not everyone could afford it. Now, the Gemara says, Kol Yema, every day, have a malvei, Rabbi Chia bar Abba, Rabbi Avo, ad ushpezei, mishum yikar de bekeser. The Gemara says, every day, Rabbi Chia bar Abba would escort Rabbi Avo to his house. Why? Out of respect, because he had connections with the emperor. Rabbi Avo was a very well-connected, he was associated with the government. So out of respect, every day, Rabbi Chia bar Abba would escort Rabbi Avo. That day that everybody left Rabbi Chia bar Abba's shir, Alva Rabbi Avo Rabbi Chia bar Abba ad ushpezei. So Rabbi Avo, he escorted Rabbi Chia bar Abba to his place. And the Gemara says, and nevertheless, Rabbi Chia bar Abba's mind was not at ease. He was very insulted that everybody left his shir. Okay, now the Gemara returns to discuss it's called Maidim D'Rabbanan. We call the Maidim, why do we call Maidim D'Rabbanan? So we're going to see in a second, because really the psukim of Maidim were really different Amoraim, different opinions of what, when the Shliach Tzibur says Maidim, what should the congregation say? So we're going to see different Rav and Shmuel and Rabbi Simai, different opinions. And what happened was, the Gemara Paskins that we should say all of them, and it's called Maidim D'Rabbanan, because these are, the Rabbanan were the people that, all the different Amoraim who are called Rabbanan, they put this together. Okay, so now he says like this, so when the Chazan is reciting Maidim, the Shaila is, what do the people say? So Amar Rav says, Hashem what you should say is, we give thanks to you, Hashem, for the merit of giving thanks to you. Shmuel says, Elikei or Elikei kol basar al sha'anu meidim lach. Shmuel says that you should say Hashem of flesh for giving thanks to you. Rabbi Shimai says, our Creator who created in the beginning for giving thanks to you. So this is what we say every day in Maidim. So Amar Papa says, now since each Chacham added a different element to the davening, therefore we should combine and recite all of them together. Like I said, that's why we call it Maidim de Rabbanan. Rabbi Yitzchak says, he says that you should make sure that you have the emas hatzibur, you should have the awe of the public should always be upon you. What does that mean? What does it mean, emas tzibur alecha? Which means that a person should always treat the tzibur like with respect. Because when the kohanim bench the people, the kohanim face the people, and where's their backs? Klape shchina. Their backs are towards the shchina, and Kivyocha Hashem says through halacha that it's mitzad kvoid, mitzad respecting the tzibur, it's okay to turn your back to Hashem, but you have to be facing the tzibur to show out of respect. Rav Nachman says like this. Rav Nachman says that where do I know that you should have emes hatzibur? So he says, Vayokim, it says, Vayokim David HaMelech al ragla vayemer, Shma'uni achai va'ami. King David stood upon his feet and said, Achai va'ami. He said, first of all, hear me, my achai va'ami, which means my brethren and my people. Now, what does this mean? That David HaMelech stood up to address the people rather than to remain seated. And what did he say? Im achai, so the Gemara asks, Im achai lo me'ami. If he said, my brothers, so why did he say my people? V'im ami lo ma'achai. And if he said, my people, why did he say my brothers? So Rabbi Elazar says, Amar lahem David Yisrael. Well, David HaMelech was saying to the Yidden, Im atem sheimim li. David had said like this, if you listen to me, then achai atem, you're my brothers. V'im lav, and if you do not listen to me, then ami atem, you are my people, and basically I'm your king. And I will rule over you with force with a stick. So what does this show? This shows that David, that if the tzibur would have accepted David respectfully, properly, David would also show them respect as well. So that's the makar that hey, emas tzibur alecha, at least in the beginning, you should always try to be respectful with the tzibur. The Rabbanan say that the importance of showing respect for the Kehillah is from this pasuk. The ein hakohanim lashem la'alis b'sandalei l'duchen. The halacha is that the kohanim are not permitted to go on the platform to recite brachas kohanim with their sandals. V'zeu achas miteshet takonos shehiskin Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai, and this is one of the 9 takonos that Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai instituted. My time. What's the reason why Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai instituted that when a kohen goes up to duchen, he cannot wear sandals? La mishum kvei tzibur. It must be out of respect for the congregation. In other words, it would be disrespectful for the kohen to wear the dirty sandals in front of the tzibur. So Rashi says, Loi. That's not the reason why Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai instituted not to wear sandals because of kvei tzibur, rather another reason. I can tell you, Hasam Shema Nifsika Loi Ritzu Besandalei, V'Hadar Ezel Lemikterei, V'Amri Ben Grusha Ben Chalutza. Rashi says that we're worried that perhaps either a strap or a sandal will break, and he's going to return to his place to go tie it, and he's not going to go back to duchening in time. And people are going to say that the reason why he removed himself from the duchen is because really he's a ben gerusha ben chalutza. So they were worried that the person shouldn't get a bad name, so they said don't wear any sandals in case the strap will break. Now, it says, we learned in the Mishnah that the outside of the Beis HaMikdash, the Kohanim said 3 brachas. They would say a pasuk, stop, say a pasuk, amen, stop, amen, stop. Okay, Mikdash says the Kohanim, by the 3 psukim, said a bracha achas, said 1 pasuk, and they did not stop. So now, okay, turn over Mem on the base. So the Gemara asks, the kol kach lama, why was the practice in the Beis HaMikdash different than, in other words, like Rashi says, why was it that in the Beis HaMikdash they said all the brachas and then amen, and outside of the Beis HaMikdash it was 3 psukim, and each pasuk there was an amen. So he says, because we did not answer amen in the Beis HaMikdash, and since we don't answer amen in the Beis HaMikdash, we don't want to pause the brachas. Okay, Tana Rabbanan, we learned in a brayso. What do we know that we did not answer amen in the Beis HaMikdash? And as it says, stand up and bench Hashem, your Hashem, forever and ever. Now, which means that the bracha is recited, so this bracha is said instead of the amen in the Beis HaMikdash. And from where do we know that each and every bracha in the Beis HaMikdash, the people respond with the words of Tehillah? As it says, I let them say, bench be your name, which is exalted above all brachas and praises. In other words, Al kol bracha tein le Tehillah. From here the Gemara learns out that each and every bracha, you should give him praise. However, you should not say amen. Okay? So now we're going to begin a new Mishnah. The Mishnah is going to discuss now, we learned in the previous Mishnah, Daf Lamed Beis Amud Aleph, that the Birchas Kohen Gadol, which had to be said in Lashon Kodesh, and then the Mishnah said that on Yom Kippur, after the Avedas Hayim and the Kodesh HaKadoshim, the Kohen Gadol would read the Parshiyos, which were Negea to Yom Kippur, and he would make 8 brachas, Shmeina brachas. So now the Mishnah is going to explain the Seder of how the Kohen read the brachas and exactly what was the Seder. So the Mishnah says, Birchas Kohen Gadol Ketzad. How was the bracha of the Kohen Gadol recited on Yom Kippur? In other words, this that we said that the Kohen Gadol makes 8 brachas, how exactly did this work? So the Mishnah said, Chazan HaKnesses Neitel Sefer Torah. First, the Chazan of the shul takes the Sefer Torah v'neisnan loy l'reish HaKnesses and gives it to who? To the head of the shul. Reish HaKnesses neisnan l'skan, and then the head of the shul gives it to the deputy kohen. V'haskan neisnan l'kohen gadol, and then the skan brings the Sefer Torah to the kohen gadol. The kohen gadol imid mekabel, and the kohen gadol stands and receives the Torah. The kohen, and then he reads Achrei Meis, the psukim of Achrei Meis, v'ach ba'asar, and then the psukim of Ach ba'asar. And then he rolls the Torah and he places it like by his bosom. And he says, more than I have read before you is written here. And in the psukim of Eser in Vayikra, that he says it Baal Peh. Now, and after that, the Kohen Gadol would recite 8 brachas. Which brachas? So the Mishnah says, he would say the bracha of Al HaTorah. So first he would say the bracha of Asher Naslana Teres Emes. Then Ba'al Aveda, the Aveda is the pasuk of Ritzei Ba'amcha Yisrael V'Seidotzer, Aveda B'Dir V'Secha, Ve'al Ha'idaya, and then he would say Meidim, Anachnu Lach, and conclude HaTeiv L'Chol Ha'edes, Mechilas Oven, and then he would make a bracha, the bracha of Ata B'Chartonu, Melech Meichav V'Sadeach La'aveinenu V'La'aveinis Amai, Ve'al HaMikdash, and then he would make the bracha of Beis HaMikdash, Baruch Asher Bochar B'Mikdash, Ve'al Yisrael, and then he would make the bracha of how he would Baruch HaBeicher B'Am Yisrael, Ve'al HaKohenim, and he'd make the bracha on Hashem should want the avodah of the kohanim, and then he would conclude the bracha Baruch Shabachar B'Zar Sha'arin, and Ve'al Yerushalayim, and he would conclude V'Yicher B'Yerushalayim, and as well V'Ashar Tefillah, and the rest of the davening, which the Gemara is going to explain, I believe, what that means. Okay. So now the first part of the Mishnah gave, like, if you ever want to buy a bris, you can never offend anybody with kibudim, because you always just give hagoshas, make sure everybody's taken care of. So over here, this is like a little bit, you see that the chazan comes, he gives it to this guy, the next guy. Why doesn't the chazan just come and just give it directly to the kohen gadol, just cut everybody out? So from here the Gemara says, Shamas Mina, you could learn from here, you could derive from here, from the fact that the Chazan HaKnesses, the head of the shul, and then the Skam Kohen Gadol receive the Torah before the Kohen Gadol, you can learn from here that what? Chok and Koved the Talmud b'Makam Harav. That you can honor may be given to a student in the presence of his teacher. In other words, even though the Kohen Gadol is everyone's teacher and he's everyone's master, Koved is extended to other people in this place, and it's really a machlekes in other places in Shas, if you're allowed to give respect to another Talmud, even if he's higher than you, but it's in front of the Rav, can you give kavod or not? So from the fact that we see in our Mishnah that you could be mechalek kavod to somebody lower than the Kohen Gadol, you don't go directly to the Kohen Gadol, must be that we paskin chok and kavod the Talmud b'Makom Harav. So Amar Abaya says, no, you cannot bring a riot from here. Why? Because kulei mishum kavod the Kohen Gadol. That the fact that we're honoring everybody else and we're giving people even lower than him, it's all for what? It's all for the honor of the Kohen Gadol. So the fact that we have different levels, that shows if it would go directly to the Kohen Gadol, so you wouldn't realize the importance of the Kohen Gadol. The fact that you have so many different levels, and then it goes to the Kohen Gadol, shows the importance of the Kohen Gadol. Okay, then the Mishnah says, the Kohen Gadol stands and receives the Torah, and he reads from it. So the Gemara says, what does it say? Kohen Gadol oimed umekabel v'keira. So from the fact that it says that the Kohen Gadol would be oimed and then mekabel the Sefer Torah, mechalal, you can be medayek from here, that the yeshavu, that till then he was sitting. Frag the Gemara of Amar, but we learned that in yeshiva bazar el malchus b'david b'vad, that kings, that you're not allowed to sit in the azara only for kings from the house of David. As it says, it says that then David went in and sat before Hashem, and he said, who am I? So how is it mutter for a Kohen Gadol to sit in the Hazara? We know the only person that is allowed to sit in the Hazara is people, David HaMelech, and people that come from David HaMelech. So the Gemara answers and says, this answer is like what Rav Chisda said. That, what does Azara mean? Azara doesn't mean that they're sitting mamash in the Azara, because the halacha is that you're not allowed to sit in the Azara. Rather, what's it talking about? Be'ezras Nashim. That we're talking about Azara means Ezras Nashim. Hachanami here also, when the Mishnah says Be'azara, or it's mashma that you stand, which is mashma beforehand that the kohen would sit, is talking about Be'ezras Nashim, which we know that Ezras Nashim did not have the kedusha of the Beis Hamikdash, and that's why it's mutter for anybody to sit in that place. So frag the Gemara, the Gemara says, I'm going to ask you a shaila from the following Tosefta. What does it say? And where does the Kohen Gadol read the Torah be'azara? In the courtyard. It was done in the Harabayis. How do you know that? Shenemar, as it says, Vayikra boy lifnei harachoy v'ashilifnei sharamayim. And he read there before the big place that was before Hashem, but before the gate of the water. So, what comes out according to his opinion? That the Kohen Gadol read the Torah in the Hazara. So what's the Shaila? We see that according to here, that the Kriyas Torah was done in the Hazara. So the Chayda, from the Mishnah, it's mashma that the Kohen Gadol would sit until they would give him the Sefer Torah. Now, if he would read in the Azara, how is he able to read? Like we know, in Yeshiva Bazara, El Malchi Beis David Bilvad. So Rav Chisda says, Be'ezras Nashim. We're talking about that, it's the Ezras Nashim. Okay, just Most of you guys came a little bit late, so I announced today, Mitzvah Hashem, even if you're going up to the country, we're starting the Siyum Sota early, 7:30. So, we're going to keep it a very short program. We're going to have dinner and entertainment, music, some speakers. So please, we have a lot of people that want to come, but we have limited space. So please, if you plan on coming, just RSVP on the WhatsApp group with the Google form, and so you reserve a spot.
So the leaving will be at 7:30?
The what?
The actual leaving will be at 7:30?
So I think, we'll start the share at 7:30. It'll be like till 8, and then 8 we'll start the program. We'll finish 10, not past that. And then for all those driving upstate, could still make it. Okay, we started off today's share. We asked all these different psukim that we say either by Mincha, by Shachris, by Ne'ilah. So the Shaila is, where would they say that? Where exactly would they say these psukim? So Rabbi Yosef said they would say it between each bracha. Rabbi Sheshes says when they mention Hashem's name. And then there was a machlekes, Rabbi Mori and Rabbi Zvid. One person says every single pasuk, they would say it 3 times, or on each pasuk. Okay. Rabbi Chia bar Abba said anybody who says any psukim begvulin outside of the Beis Hamikdash ein eloteya. So we brought down from Taisvis, we know we say the Ribbonei Shel Olam in Brechas Kainim every Yom Tov we say it. Based on this Gemara, how could we say it? So Taisvis said that the idea of the that is about a cholim, which a cholim is mesukin. So like there's a heter over there. Other Mefarshim, other Rishonim want to say that they didn't actually say the words, these psukim, at the time that the kohen would actually say it, but rather during the humming. Okay, Omar Chanina bar Papa, you should know that in the Beis Hamikdash also they didn't say these psukim because it's not respectful for an Eved while he's being benched to also start benching as well. Rabbi Acha bar Chanina says you should know that in the Gvulin, outside of the Beis Hamikdash, you should say it. Why? Because you have to show gratitude. That if you're getting gebenched, you have to show gratitude and express your akar satev as well. Now, Rabbi Vo says in the beginning, I used to say these psukim. Once I saw Rabbi Abba the Minaku that he was not saying it, I also stopped saying it. Rabbi Vo, in the beginning, I said that I'm an onav. Once I saw Rabbi Abba the Minaku that he would give a share. He would say the pshat hazoi. And then the Meturgaman would go and say, Mamish, not give over the message the way he was supposed to, and he wasn't makbid. So he says, you know what, I'm not a real anav. Now, Rabbi Vo said that in the beginning he thought that he was an anav. The question is, what stories could you say about Rabbi Vo that he was an anav? So the first story he brought down, that his wife was once having a conversation with the wife of Rabbi Vo's Meturgaman, and the wife of the Meturgaman tells the wife of Rabbi Vo, you should know my husband doesn't really need your husband, and he could learn just as well as your husband, and the only reason why he bends over and he translates it is because he just wants to give your husband respect. So she got offended. She goes to her husband and she says, you heard what the Meturgaman said about you? So he said a word, he says, what do you care? Mini umine. Through both of us, Yiskala Sila Hashem is exalted. Another story he said is that that they wanted to appoint Rabbi Vo as Rosh Hashiva, and he saw that his colleague Rabbi Vo the Menaku had many chayvus, and the minig was that they wiped out the debt of the Rosh Hashiva. So he says, you know what, Ikar Rabba, let him be the Rosh Hashiva. Now, Rabbi Avo and Rabbi Chia once were coming to a certain place, and each one gave a share Rabbi Avo gave a share in Agadta, and Rabbi Chia bar Abba gave a share in Halacha. Everybody left Rabbi Chia bar Abba's share and went to Rabbi Avo, and Rabbi Chia bar Abba got very offended. So Rabbi Avo told him, I'll give you a mashal, and you have 2 people selling, one selling stones, very precious stones, and one is selling this like very cheap stuff, so everybody is going to go and buy the cheap stuff because they can afford it. But what's better is the Margolius Tavius. So he says that really your share is a lot deeper than mine. It's just mine is simple to understand, so everybody's coming to me. Okay, so the Gemara says is that every day Rabbi Chia bar Abba used to escort Rabbi Avo because he had such high connections with the government. So he used to escort him to his house. Now that day that the story happened, that everybody left his share, so Rabbi Avo, he felt bad for Rabbi Chia bar Abba, so he would escort him, and he was so offended that didn't matter what he would say to him, he was not able to calm down. Now, so what do they say? So we brought down a few different opinions of Maidim, different psukim, and being that the different Rabbanon, like we said, Maidim de Rabbanon, they brought down different psukim, so they just, Rabbi Papa says, everybody, we just take everyone's opinion and we say all of them. Rabbi Yitzchak says that a person should always have emes hatzibur, have respect for the tzibur. Why? Because the Kohanim, even though their backs face the Shekhinah, nevertheless they have faced the tzibur when they bench them. Rav Nachman says we see by David HaMelech, Vayakam HaMelech David al Raglov, and he said Achai v'Rayai, Achai and Rayai. So why do you say Achai Rayai? Because he said if you're going to be respectful, then you'll be like my brothers. If not, then I'm your king and I can do whatever I can do to you. So what do we see? That David HaMelech tried to start off nicely. Abundant say that Ein HaKohen Rashalin, that the fact that a Kohen is not allowed to go to La'alis B'tzibur with their sandals, and this is one of the takonis of Rabbi Yechon ben Zakkai, it must be out of respect for the tzibur. So Rashi says no, the reason why that a kohen cannot wear sandals is because we're worried that perhaps the strap of the sandal will break, and then he'll have to descend and go down from Duchin, and then everyone's going to say that the reason why he had to leave is because he's a ben grusha ben chalutza. Then we said that in the Mikdash they would say all the psukim and then say amen. So the question is why, or they wouldn't say anything. The question is why? Because you don't say amen in the Beis HaMikdash. Tanan Abanon, where do we know that you don't say amen in the Beis HaMikdash? Because it says kumo borchu as Hashem aleikeichem na'elam ba'ad olam. And where do we know that every bracha you say tehillah? So you brought the pasuk of Yivorchu Shem Kvedecha Omerim Kol Bracha Tehillah, which teaches us every bracha you say tehillah. Then we brought that the Kohen Gadol he would say 8 brachas on Yom Kippur. So the question is, so the Mishnah asked Ketzad brachas Kohen Ketzad. So the Chazan would bring the Sefer Torah and take it out and give it to the head of the Knesset, and then the head of Knesset to the Sgan, and the Sgan to the Kohen Gadol, and the Kohen Gadol would then read the psukim and then put it back on his bosom, and then he would say certain psukim outside, and then he would make these 8 brachas. So the Gemara said that you could derive from here that it's okay to be mechalek kovit at Talmud even b'makom rav, from the fact that the Chazan HaKnesses can go and give it to the Rosh HaKnesses, and the Rosh HaKnesses give it to the Sgan, and he doesn't go directly to the Kohen Gadol, must be that Chayil can cover the Pnei Harav, which that will answer the machlekes elsewhere if you're allowed to be mechalek kovid from one Talmud to another Talmud b'makom harav. So the Gemara says no, you cannot bring a raya from there. Abaye says you can't bring a raya from there because all the kovid that you're giving really to the other kohanim or the other deputies is really all showing honor to the big Kohen Gadol. Now the Mishnah said that Kohen Gadol is oimid u'mekabel v'keira, which is mashma that he stands up where in the Azara, which would imply that till then he was sitting in the Azara. So the Gemara asks, that the only person who's allowed to sit in the Azara is people who are from Beis David. A regular Kohen Gadol would be usher to sit in the Azara. So the Gemara says that what our Mishnah means to say is Ezras Nashim. So the Gemara says, I'm going to ask you a shayla from the Brisa, where did he read the Torah Ba'azara? Rabbi Elazar says it was the Harabayis. So l'chera we see that if it was in the Azara, how could he be sitting? So Rabbi Chizda says the same answer was not in the Azara, but it was in the Ezras Nashim, which was in the Harabayis.